just amazing. My wife was, and I do miss my wife today. She's at home. She woke up not feeling well, and I had brother Sam bring up Sister Tony because I've asked Sister Tony to go sit with her. So my wife and I both feel like I need to be at this service this afternoon. So even though Sister Tony has school to do, I said, you can get on my internet if you'll go sit with my wife for a little while. So she's agreed to do that. But I miss her. She woke up in some pain this morning. She was talking about not taking some pills last night just to see where she was, and I don't know if that happened, but she was hurting this morning. So please remember to pray for her. We just had a good time except for the trip back. It was rough on my wife. I slept like a baby. No, really, I tossed and turned and was hungry and I cried and it was terrible. But the Lord saw fit and had us come. I don't know what his plan or his reasoning was for us to spend 2 nights in a row in the best ER and then the worst ER I've ever been in. Y'all, we went to the ER at the Women's and Children's Center in Orlando at the Winnie Palmer Center. Y'all, we showed up and there's valet parking. The security is smiling, sipping coffee. There's a 70-foot glass golf ball that serves as their atrium. It was gorgeous. It was gorgeous. And it was nice. People were nice in there. And then we went to wonderful, beautiful, sunny Seattle. And I made a joke with my wife as we pulled up to the hospital. I said, well, welcome to Seattle Grace. I know the carnal people now. I said, welcome to Seattle Grace. Your surgeon today will be the famed Dr. Gray. And I walked in, and I was appalled. Seattle Grace has really gone downhill. It has really gone downhill. I walked into smells that smelled. And kids running around screaming. It actually reminded me of some church services. We went in there and they took her in the back, and they were like, yeah, just go in and let them know who you are, blah, blah, blah. So I did the registration and everything. In about half an hour, they wheel her out into the waiting room. I was like, you're not done. She goes, no, there's no beds. Yeah. I was like, you kidding me? Like, Junior got a cold and got a bed. But all right, Lord, you're in charge here. And we sat there. We got there probably about 9. It was a very nice ambulance. Nice driver, and the EMT was great. But we got there probably about 9 o'clock, and we got back to the airport about 5 in the morning. So that was 2 nights in a row we spent in, I was joking, I think, with Sister Tony. I was like, those 2 ER rooms was like heaven and hell. They were not very nice. They were not very nice in there. But I tell you what, God helped me. We had a very belligerent homeless gentleman in there who, my wife joked, she goes, we got mooned by a homeless guy. But he was very belligerent. He was inebriated. And everybody else just looked on him and they're like, oh, why doesn't he just leave? And I sat there and I looked at that man and I said, God, why are we here? And he said, and I just got that impression. He said, well, nobody loves that man. Nobody loves that man but me. And so I began to pray for him. No, I didn't want him shouting all of the bombs that he was shouting around my bride or the other children that were there. But I was able to, in the Spirit, just love on him. So here we are. We're home. We're home, and I'm glad to be home. I am so glad to be home. A few years ago when I was down, y'all gonna have to play with this if it doesn't sound right. Sorry. I'm glad to be home. I'm ornery. Yeah, it's gonna hurt when I get going, Brother Tim. It's gonna hurt somebody's ears. Let me bring this up first. We have Brother Holzman who's going to be up with us on the 12th. And the 19th is the Christmas for Christ offering date. But we're going to go ahead and make ours on the 12th. He and I have been talking, and he feels a few things. And I was like, you know what, man, if that's what you feel, let's do it. So we're going to do ours on the 12th. We do have these cards here. And I would like you to go ahead and utilize those, but I don't want you to just go, you know what, look, I have $23 in my pocket, I'll take the 12 and the 11. I want you to follow after God, and just listen to God on what you can give to home missions, to North American missions this year for Christmas. This is our Christmas for Christ offering. None of it stays here in this church. It goes to the district, which I believe 40% stays in our district, and that helps do programs and revivals and different ministries around Alaska. We had the Church in a Day program, which in the outskirts of Alaska, we call it the Church in a Summer program. It was a little difficult getting everything up there as was needed. There's no Lowe's or Home Depot or even Spenard's in Cayenne. So everything that they needed, they had to either, it was small enough to fly it up, which is expensive, or, oh look, we're a couple 2x12 20s short. They had to buy it, get it put on a barge, and a month later it would show up. So the logistics was really, really rough for that project. But things like that within our district is something that Brother Blackshear, who is our NAM director for Alaska Yukon District, has been doing. And so we just want to give every way we can to this great program. We have received funds from the Christmas for Christ and North American Missions, then called Home Missions. When we bought this place, I think they gave us, $15,000 or something like that. We didn't have enough in our savings to get the down payment, and so they wrote us a check and said, "Here, buy your church." So we owe them. We owe the body. We owe the body. We owe you. You owe us. We're just the body of Christ, and so we do like to give to that. For the last 2 years, the Alaska Yukon District has actually been the #1 giving district in North America. There are some districts that will have 100 churches in them, and we have 24. And last year we gave, I believe, $419,000 in the year of a pandemic when businesses were closing. We can't find enough help to get you a burger in a decent amount of time. But the church is giving more because the church is being blessed. And actually, I just felt a check in my spirit. The church isn't giving more because the church is being blessed. The church is being blessed because the church is giving more. So, so I did want to mention that. But I'm going to go ahead and begin. There's that first photo of the city, if you wouldn't mind putting that up there. I just want to show you, this is, we'll let them get there in a minute. This is Panama City. A few years ago when my wife and I were down there, we were driving with Brother and Sister Knowles, and we were just driving through some of the state routes and just right right down through Panama City, and we were seeing houses that they were already starting to clean up. We were 4 or 5 months after Hurricane Michael, which just really devastated that whole area. There were piles of debris everywhere. And when we were down there, I really felt the broken heart of a city. They had moved, they had changed. It's a great destination for tourism, and so they had changed so many of their hotels into condos, just to locate a lot of the people in the Panama City area and the Panama City Beach area. But talking to Pastor Knowles a few years ago when we were down there, he began explaining and just sharing with me a little bit about something that I never thought of. You know, we talk about what hurricanes do, and we see the devastation that they bring. But something I had never thought of was, I said something about fishing and diving, and because the water down there is beautiful, just beautiful. And he goes, well, he said, it's going to take a few years, sir, for them to resurvey the ocean floor. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, with a hurricane, it stirs up not just the air, but it stirs up all the water too. He said, so every sunken ship, every sunk boat, every artificial reef. Artificial reef. I said, do the reefs move? And he goes, not the reef, but the artificial reefs. Those will move. And I'm like, wait, what? He said, it'll take them several years to remap the ocean floor as to what's there. And so I just thought, man, that is really neat. That is really interesting. And so I was talking to him about it this time because God had already begun to talk to me about what I was going to be preaching today. And I know we've been talking about the mind a lot, right? Remember before the beginning of this year, we talked about body, soul, spirit, about the health of all three. Well, it seems like it might be my wife. It's not God. He already gave me his notes. But it seems like that lately we've really been spending a lot of time on the mind. Now, I didn't get the title for Thursday, but Brother Dion and I talked about it, and he really was feeling that mind. And Brother Elmore preached about the battlefield of the mind last Sunday. And I told Sienna, I was like, I'm preaching battlefield. She's like, okay. I was like, we'll change it. And matter of fact, while I was on the plane, God said, I want you to preach it, entitle it Beauty for Ashes. My mind went to this, and as I spoke with Pastor Knowles, and I said, do you think that the ocean floor has been remapped yet? And he said, oh, no, sir. He said, probably another year and a half to remap it. He said, it takes an incredible amount of time, even with satellite, which is how they map a lot of that. And I was like, so tell me again what it is. And so he began to explain this to me, and I'm explaining this now to you. In a situation, a storm such as that kind of magnitude, it lifts everything up that can be lifted, because the water just swirls and it goes everywhere. And you imagine the wind, how fast it's moving. And it doesn't take long before it begins making waves, and it begins picking stuff up depending on how fast that Category 5 hurricane is, and how big the eye is, and how fast it moves. And it will pick that water up, and it's just like a humongous cyclone, like a huge a tornado. And it's just throwing everything out everywhere. You got the shipwreck that was over here that's now 1,000 miles away, or 100 miles away, or 5 miles away. You've got a man-made or a man-dropped reef that has been picked up and it's been destroyed, and now it's strewn over acres and acres. And what these are, every shipwreck there has an ecosystem. Each one of these has an ecosystem, which basically means it's going to have some sort of coral. It's going to have urchins, and it's going to have sea anemones. And y'all ever seen Finding Nemo? There's going to be these things all over, but each one of these down ships, or this sunken this, or this, or this, they're all going to have their own ecosystem. We don't just have fish that go, yep, I'm in the water, I'm good. No, they got to have a place to live. They got to have a place. No, it's not like SpongeBob. But there are ecosystems everywhere. And so as I was talking to him about this, I said, this time, I said, explain to me again the ecosystems. And so I was amazed. I was absolutely amazed when he was telling me some of these things, because perspectives that I'd never considered. I said, now you said something about man-made reef. And he said, oh, absolutely. Yes, sir. There's man-made reefs all through this. And I was like, okay, why do we need to know where all of the shipwrecks are now? The down ships and the down boats and the German U-boats and everything. I don't know why they'd be on that side, but you never know what's there. But there's stuff all over the place. Why would we need to know where they're at? He said, well, because they manage that. And I said, why do they manage the ecosystems? Just to make sure that we have predator-prey equalization? He goes, oh, no, it's not just that. He said, tourism, it helps tourism. I was like, the ecosystem of a sunken ship affects tourism. He says, oh, absolutely. He said, we have sport fishermen who come here from all over the world. So having this place mapped out and having a big blank spot over here where nobody gets to fish, where this city used to thrive on tourism and fishing, will die. And so they manage. It was amazing. It was amazing. He's talking about this shipwreck here. If we have all the shipwrecks over here, we're going to have way too many people going there, because that's where everything is. And these other cities and these other areas are going to die. And all the fish and all the predators that come to those waters to hunt, they're going to die. And that's going to continue to spread. And it really throws off the balance of life, the ecosystem that God has created. He said, so we have to have that. So here I'm thinking about after a hurricane, it's not just the devastation of a home. It's not just one family looking at one bedroom or maybe part of a garage that's standing and saying, what are we going to do now? I don't know where to go with this. Because after a storm, after a fight, after a battle, nobody thinks about the battlefield. Nobody thinks about the scars that a hurricane leaves on a city or on a state or even on multiple ecosystems that the eye cannot see. I'll admit it, driving through the streets of Panama City and Callaway and Parker and all these other areas, all these other cities in that area, and even today, seeing hotels that have not been rebuilt. Watching construction still go up 2.5, 3 years later, post-Michael. These are the things that I think about. But I never think about the life and death of a city because of ecosystems under the water that my eye cannot see. We talk about the battlefield of the mind, and we talk about that is where spiritual battles are fought. But we never stop and think about how every battle leaves its scars. Have been, and I can't go into it because of time or possibly because of people's embarrassment. But there have been many things in the last 5 years in this church and in my ministry that have changed my mind about the soul of man. And that soul of man is the mind. Body, soul, spirit. We are three. We are a physical. We are a thought or a mind, and we are a spiritual being. And all of our spiritual warfare that we fight, what I fight inside of me, I fight it on the battlefield of my mind. I could put on a face physically, but you have no idea what's going on inside my mind. I can come in and I can do my best to worship, and I can show you that everything is good, but then go home and feel alone. Why? Because I fight spiritually and I fight even physically, but I fight it here where nobody else can see it. Because it's so hard. It's so hard to let somebody in. It's so hard because normally the things we fight because we have reason to mistrust people. We go through life, and Brother Isaiah, you could become my enemy when all I'm dealing with is stuff in my mind, and I'm not taking into account the stuff you've had to deal with in your mind. And so you and I have, we just have a conversation, and something that you say because you're stuck in your mind is misinterpreted by me because I'm just stuck in my mind. And now all of a sudden there's a problem between us. He doesn't love me. He's a bad saint. He's a bad pastor. He doesn't care for me the way he's supposed to. I know what Scripture says. I've seen it and I don't see it in you. Because we've gone through things that cause mistrust of others. Because we've been hurt. Because maybe you had an easy childhood and mine was difficult. You can't understand me. Can't understand what I'm going through. You don't know what it's like. We have cause to put up barriers, walls, strongholds. Strongholds. A stronghold is a house built of thought. The way you think. The aftermath of an argument, the aftermath of a storm. From July 1st to July 3rd, 1863, there was a battle in this country. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Within these few short days, we lost roughly 51,000 American people. 23,000 Union and about 28,000 Confederates. Through this one battle. Through this one battle. We talk about the loss. We see the loss. We see the wins. We see what came out of it. We know the number, roughly the numbers of how many soldiers fell. But does anybody stop and think about Gettysburg? I know the land is less important than the people. But stay with me because where I'm going is spiritual. The land, the battlefield, the mind is what I'm talking about. And your mind is no less important than your spirit or your physical body. We don't know what these battles scar. We don't know what a broken relationship or a broken family does to us. You may be part of a broken family, and you might not even realize that it's because of this that it has affected your mind in a way that makes you feel like you're less than in the physical and less than in the spiritual. You don't understand. No, this is a physical problem that we have when you could be wrong. This could completely be a mental, a mind issue, a battlefield issue. I was thinking, had my eyes closed and thinking about the land in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Thinking about those that were left behind and had to clean up the battlefield, and as they picked people up, both wearing blue and wearing gray, and trying to figure out who came here and who was there and what happened here, what happened there. I would imagine that we had to be very careful because maybe there was some ordnance out there that was unexploded. Maybe we had muskets that were primed, or rifles that were primed that just had not gone off, and it was hanging on by almost nothing, and just moving the dirt around it could make a rifle or a pistol go off. You had no idea what scars the battlefield had. And then I began to think about this, and people cleaning the bodies and people picking up bodies and taking them and then finally burying them. What did the ground look like? Soaked in blood. What did it do for the survivors? What did it do for those that had to come in and had to take trees that were downed because of cannon fire? Had to pick up captains and majors and generals and had to carry their bodies. Or you hear the screams of those that had been wounded but not dead as there's not enough pain medicine and they're having to cut off arms or legs. What does it do? What was Gettysburg? What was it? And several months later in November 19th to be exact, we look up and we see the Gettysburg Address that was given by President Abraham Lincoln. He said, 70 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men were created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it. Far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Those of you, and I realize I speak to everyone in this place, including myself, those of us who have fought spiritually, who have fought mentally, who have even fought physically, and it has affected our mind. It has scarred our battlefield. Nothing I can say can consecrate your mind. Your fights have done this already. Your battles and the scars that your mind has on them has consecrated you, because today I can say you are a victor. You are a victor. Isaiah chapter 61. Let us stand. I could keep going, but there's no reason to. I'm going to close with this. Thank you for your attention and your spirits and your hearts, your minds being open. Please leave them open for just a few more minutes, because God is in here and God is going, He is going to confirm His word in us today. Isaiah 61. Beginning in 1 to get down to where I would like to be. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that He might be glorified. Just to add one more verse. And they shall build you You who choose to allow God healing in your mind today, they shall build the old wastes. They shall raise up the former desolations. They shall repair the waste cities, the desolations of many generations. The things in your life and the ways of your mind that people have said are waste, garbage, trash, you will rebuild them. You will build them back to where you no longer listen to the voice of the enemy who lies to your spirit, who lies to your mind. Does not matter who has said what. It does not matter what you have said about yourself. God says, I will give you beauty for ashes. I will give it to you. Every time God says He'll give you a gift, He wants you to take your stuff and say, God, I can't have your gift and my stuff too. So I give you my ashes today. This front is open. Please come. Please come, God. I bring to you today, to this front, I bring my ashes. Will you even give me beauty, Lord? Will you give me the oil of joy? God, my brokenness and my hurt, my struggles and my fights, my trials, my storms, God, the effect that they've had on me, God, I bring these to you. Will you take them, God? Give back to me the beauty. Oh, God, I've mourned long enough. God, I give my mourning to you. Can I have the oil of joy? It's not just joy. The oil of joy represents the nature. When something has been boiled down to make that oil, it says, I'm going to give you such a concentration of joy. For mourning. Today, you are not just representative, but you are the planting of God Almighty. Allow God to change your loss into something new, as only God can do. As only God can do. He's a God of restoration. He's a God of advantageous trading. When you give him something, he always gives something better, something greater in return. God, in this place today, however it comes to be, however you decide to do it, God, through a miracle, through time, through sharing, through counsel, I speak healing into the minds today. I speak beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, God. I speak it today. Halamalia pora sandala katiala. Iala kashi prando rosso kia pandala. Iala la malia mologo shondala.